This misinformation or lack of certainty is what's causing the housing market to be such a shit show. Honestly, Brian, I swear to God, there's maybe 1% of realtors out there who are good at their job. The majority of realtors out there are not, let alone a good realtor, they're not good humans.
So we've been talking a lot about the real estate market here in Northern Nevada, Reno, Lake Tahoe, the surrounding cities. And what's hilarious is if you watch the news and you read what's going on out there, they would tell you that the real estate market is a total, lack of better description, effing disaster. And in reality, that is not true. So if you're someone thinking about buying or selling a home or is looking for more great information about all things Northern Nevada, by all means, please subscribe to the channel, hit the bell so you'll be notified. We have great videos and content coming out every week. And just know that we're here to support you and get you the information you need to know what's really going on about the real estate market and all things Northern Nevada. So today I brought on one of my real estate friends who does loans here in Northern Nevada, Shivani Peterson, who works at All Western Mortgage. And so we could talk about this exact thing because we talk about it a lot offline. And so today we figured let's get some microphones out and let's talk about this for real.
So here's my question though.
Yes.
When we're online,
Yes.
do you talk more or less?
I would say I talk less, which is probably bad than when I talk offline. I don't know why that is because I talk a lot. Everyone knows that. But maybe it's not that I talk less. Maybe I'm just not quite as spicy as I should be. So I'm hoping today we can do that. Yeah.
I can bring that out.
I hope so. I
would say the real estate market might actually be a shit show. It's a shit show in different ways than people think.
I would agree. So first, tell them, how long have you been doing loans?
11 years
11
now.
years, all here in Northern Nevada.
I started when I was 15. And yes, all here. I've lived in Reno my whole life.
Talking about the real estate market, it was funny. We were just talking about a post you made today about the real estate market and what people have been saying about the real estate market and what we're hearing and seeing. So, what are your thoughts on it? And maybe it is more of a shit show than people are saying, but I think if you were already a homeowner and you've owned your home, I think you're in a great spot. I mean, obviously prices are down from what they were a year or two ago. I think it's more of an issue for people trying to get into the real estate market.
Here's what I'm seeing from those people, and this is very, very recent. Mm-hmm. Let's imagine that you were waiting to buy a home because of interest rates. So you got ready around 2022. Mm-hmm. 2022, you were like, okay, I want to buy a home. And interest rates took a turn for the wrong direction. So you've been waiting.
Right.
You waited 6 months of 2022. You waited all of 2023. At this point, you got to be tired of waiting. And I swear that's what I'm seeing. People are less interest rate focused. And every week I'm seeing more mortgage applications. And when we look at mortgage application data nationwide, it's ticking up every week. People are either sick of waiting, they're sick of their current situation and they need to make a move, or they've gotten enough education now. They've mm-hmm. connected with the right people who are coaching them better than just relying on the news.
I would totally agree with you on that. I know we just helped 3 different couples all in their 20s be able to buy houses. And 2 of those obviously got a little help from family members for down payments. And 2 of them, of the 3, also did a little 2-1 buy down. So they were trying to work on some things to make it more affordable in the short run versus in the long term. But I think, like you said, when, rates have been anywhere between, let's say, mid-high 6s to low 7s up to 8 over the last handful of months. And I personally think rates don't need to come down that much for people to really get moving. I was saying to Andrew before we got on this, that my pipeline of buyers and sellers and people are starting to really pick up. And I'm just super curious how the second and third quarters of this year are going to be. Are they going to play out as frantic and crazy in multiple offers? Or are they going to be more like, hey, we're getting back in the market and it's more of a standard, which I say standard. I've been doing this for 25 years. I don't think I've seen standard ever for very long. So,
Since you are old, I have a question for you. But if we go back to what you were saying before, of people using the 2-1 buy downs, mm-hmm. You've been in this a long time, right? Mm-hmm. You saw predatory lending.
Oh, absolutely.
So what do you think of the temporary buy down?
Well, I personally, myself, I'm not a huge fan of them. I'm not a huge fan. I think that if you can get into a rate that you can lock into, I'm super conservative as far as this stuff goes.
That's too conservative.
I don't disagree. I mean, I'm not like Dave Ramsey conservative where you're saying put 25% down and have a 15-year mortgage. The temporary buy down
is a 30-year fix. There's
it is
no
a 30-year fix.
Payment.
But I want them to be able to make sure that at the end of that buy down, because that payment's obviously going to go up over the next 2 years, that part of them doing this isn't so that they say, oh, I'm going to make more, I'm going to get a raise. I want them to be able to afford the end payment currently. I still think the buy down's a good idea short term, but they got to be careful because some people, as you know, they're not good with their money.
But we have to qualify them on the full note rate.
Okay.
So we're qualifying them
on that end payment, not the first 2 year payment.
And even ARMs now are like that, where we're qualifying, because back in your day, way back then, the ARMs.
I see how this is going to go today. I see how this is going to go.
We're not fully amortizing ARMs, right? Back then, ARMs, you could be doing interest only. That's what really got a lot of people. And they were just qualifying you on the interest only payment. So your income at its best couldn't sustain the worst case of the loan. Now, even if you're doing an ARM, which I want to be very clear, the temporary buy down program is not an ARM. It's a 30-year fix.
100%.
But even if you're doing an ARM on the lending side now, we're required to qualify you at the full rate that ARM could go to.
Oh, wow.
We don't get to qualify you at the...
So what are you seeing? So let's talk about that one for a minute. That's kind of somewhere I wasn't expecting that we would go. But when you see people like on my very first house, I actually did an ARM. Now, I knew what it was. I knew how it worked. And it was a standard. At that time, it was a 5-year ARM. I knew I was only going to live in this house 3 to 5 years. And at that time, rates had been pretty flat. So I think my payment, I lived in that house for 3.5 years. The payment changed slightly twice, but it was a 1% per year cap. That was the most it could go up. So I understood what the deal was. And I think my payment back then was like $850.
Oh man. What a
So,
time to do that.
worst case, you're talking, $50 to $100 difference in your payment, which wasn't a big deal. But in some of these now, I know there was bigger jumps where it could be 2% or even more per year. And I just know that, as you do, explain it to people. But a lot of lenders, I think, they're predatory lenders. They just want to do loans. They just want to make a commission. And they're not really explaining to that client what they're actually doing.
What I'm seeing more so than predatory lenders is lenders who just haven't invested in themselves to be confident about what they're saying. So they're answering your question to the best of their ability, but their ability is pretty limited and it's involving a lot of guessing. So they don't necessarily have bad intentions, but they're causing harm unintentionally because they're not keeping apprised of all the options available to you. They're not fully understanding the program they're selling you themselves. So how can they make you understand it?
Right.
And it does circle back to what we plan to talk about because this misinformation or lack of certainty is what's causing the housing market to be such a shit show.
Oh, I agree. And I think it's the same thing happens on the real estate side where every time we try to do content or talk about the importance of having an experienced person, having a good lender, having all the people involved in your transaction, instead of just saying, hey, my cousin got a license and this is going to be their first transaction they ever did. And we all had to be new at some point. I get it.
Yeah.
But I think people don't realize how important those people are, especially now as we're hearing all these things with our industry. It's being sued left and right, how they're going to decouple the commissions and how buyer commissions are going to be separated from seller commissions. And it's going to be all these crazy things. And everyone's saying, well, why is the seller paying the buyer's agent? And I've never felt like the seller was actually paying the buyer's agent. I always felt like it on the piece of paper, it might show that way, but the buyer's the one bringing all the money to the table. And so there's all these things where now, literally earlier today, I got a call from someone who literally got a postcard in the mail from an attorney for anyone who bought a home between 2018 and now saying, oh, we're going to have a class action lawsuit. We're going to go sue all the realtors that got involved in these deals. And you're just like, they're just preying on people who don't have any idea what's going on out there. So like you said, in today's world, as much as sometimes you might want to use a friend or a family member or someone you better get someone who knows what they're doing in this industry, because if not, you're going to potentially have major problems. And I think that's, like I said, understanding what's going on. So when we talk about why are people scared or fearful, or we did a video a couple of years ago, I called that the real estate market was frozen and everyone's like, I don't want to do anything because I'm scared. When you put out content like that, not very many people watch it. They don't want to look at that stuff. And then when you have to spice it up and say some things and get people a little more aggressive with it, then they do tend to listen to it a little bit more. But it is definitely interesting to hear what you're saying is when you get those buyers in there. And again, I don't know if a lot of the people that are coming to you for a loan already have a realtor ahead of time and they were sent to you, or you're getting your own people that now you got to turn around and send to a realtor where they're finding out, hey, I don't need to be scared. This is actually a good time to buy it. And I always say, if you're buying a home and you're not sure you're going to be in it more than a year or two, you might not want to buy.
Yeah, we go over those numbers with people.
It's a long-term game. And I keep trying to explain to people that whole get rich quick thing, it doesn't work.
There's people flipping in today's market, for sure.
I haven't seen much of that lately.
But they're very, very experienced at what they're doing. They are an anomaly. And so this market is not overall the market that you get to flip a house in. But when people come into us and they're asking for this advice, or they're working with a realtor who's unexperienced, it is so difficult because I end up having to act as a realtor. I'm not a licensed realtor.
Just like I'm not a lender.
But I'm having to say, hey, your agent needs to be asking for this or negotiating in this way. Then the agent's calling me. They don't know how to fill out the purchase agreement. They can't reach their broker. And honestly, Brian, I swear to God, there's maybe 1% of realtors out there who are good at their job. And I know I get heat for saying that, but it's not the first time I've said it, and I stand by it. The majority of realtors out there are not let alone a good realtor. They're not good humans.
Oh, no, I don't disagree with you. And like you said, I have to be very cautious because obviously we're bound by the code of ethics and what we're allowed to say or not say about other realtors. But I can't tell you how many times you just see what's going on and you wish you could just pick up the phone and call that person's client and just say, hey, this person's not, well, they're just not doing right by you. And it just makes it really difficult. And now, of course, in return, what they're doing is they're taking all the realtors and they're coming after our whole industry saying that somehow we're all awful. And I know lots of great realtors.
No, exceptional people
that are doing the right thing by their clients. I always say, if you do the right thing by your clients over the long term, that's how your career gets built. That's how you just get phone calls from friends and people you know that say, I need to buy or I need to sell. And those are the kind of clients you want. You're not trying to sit here and say, here's what my worth is. So
good realtors recognize their role because here we are sitting in a time span where housing affordability has changed so fast. So I've been in this 11 years. The first 8 years of my career, when I looked at the affordability index for here, Reno, Nevada specifically, it was 100%. If you earned the median income, you could afford the mortgage payment on a median priced home. Why didn't everyone buy? Because not everybody had a down payment. But you could afford it. If you lived and worked here, you could afford to live here. But the thing that's changed in the last 3 years is we've gone from 100% affordability to 68%. If you don't think that has an impact on the mental health of our community, you're sleeping. I looked it up because I'm in grad school. So I went in and I have access to the research databases. And so I type in mental health and housing. They did a study and they found such a strong correlation between housing affordability and people's outlook on life and their will to live that they urged lawmakers to make housing affordability a health equity issue.
Really?
Not an economic issue, a health equity issue. And then here we are as lenders and realtors in this market, not understanding our role and the difference we're making in people's lives. Like, it's not just about like doing right by your client for this transaction. You and I have both seen home ownership change the course of
their whole family
life.
Their whole family's life.
They've built generational wealth by buying that one home that you and I helped them get into. And then the rest of their life is entirely different. I think that's where you separate the good realtors from the bad ones. The ones who understand our role and our power in all this and the impact that we can create in people's lives.
That cost of living thing is funny. We just shot a video talking about cost of living here. And pretty much every other cost of living factor is pretty comparable to most other places. It's that housing feature, whether you're buying, you're renting, whatever it is. And it's kind of crazy because, like I said, my kids, my youngest is about to turn 23, my oldest is 27. And just based on timing, my son and about 8 of his friends, they come to my house about once a month, and we talk about all things finance and money and all these things.
You must be a good dad.
We try, and their friends come, and we're pretty open. It's been really a lot of fun for me as well. And what's crazy is
it because you like to talk?
Well, they like to listen. But there's 3 of them that have all bought homes, and the 3, one just bought a home in the year that we've been meeting, and the other 2, fortunately, were lucky enough to buy homes 4 years ago. And what I joke to them about is that if my daughter, who happens to just be 4.5 years younger than her brother, tried to go do the same thing he did 4 years ago, she's no less smart. She has no less information. Her parents could help her just like we helped her brother. The problem is her house payment on the same house, his house was about $300 when we bought it. It's probably worth $425 to $450 now. His payment's $1,300. He has 2 roommates.
Hers would be double.
It would be triple between the rates. He's at 3.25.
Oh.
Her rate at the time we were talking about it, her rate would have been 7, let's say. So her payment would have been like $3,500. And even if she got 2 roommates paying her $1,000 a month, she's still paying $1,500. His payment's not even but $1,300, and his 2 roommates pay 90% of it. His house payment is like $200 a month. That's just unfortunate timing and bad luck. And like you were just saying, with the way everything changed in the last 4 years, really, it's like kind of when COVID happened and they didn't know what it was going to do, and the real estate market kind of closed for 90 days. Well, then the next 6 or 8 months after that was the craziest 6 or 8 months I can remember doing this business, but we didn't realize what the long-term effects were going to be. And really what happened is I sold all the homes that I should have sold in the last 2 years in those 8 months. And now everybody's sitting here like we're talking about. They're fearful. They're scared. What do I do? And who do I trust to get the information from? And that's kind of what we're talking about today, is the importance of, if you are fearful and scared, where do you go? Because a lot of people can't go to their own mom and dad because maybe they're terrible with their finances, and they can't go to their friends. It's crazy. Like, they don't know where to go. And so that's what we're trying to do today, is get people to say, hey, go find someone who's living the life that you want to live or owns the rental properties you want to own, and take them to lunch or just ask them for coffee and say, hey, how do I do this? That's how this started with my kids' friends and all that. Was like, they're all now kind of 26 to 28. There's a couple guys in there, they're in their early 30s, and they feel like financially they don't understand anything, and they never learned it anywhere.
And they weren't prepared.
No, they weren't prepared at all. And I joke about it all the time, because even for me, I have a degree in finance and economics. And when I was in college, what you learn is about corporate finance and economics. You don't learn about personal finance. And personal finance is the most under-taught thing.
Well, who could teach it well is the question. Like, I don't think we can start this in high school, because are we expecting these high school teachers who make less than $30,000 a year to teach our kids what to do with money? If they knew what to do with money, they wouldn't be in the job they're in. They would have done something else. And then it's going to get sponsored by like Wells Fargo or Bank of America, who are going to roll out the curriculum. And what's that going to be? It's all going to be like steering towards like what the big banks want you to believe.
Well, I think like
so I don't know what the solution is.
Well, when I've talked with these guys, it was honestly what was so shocking to me was just basic, super basic financial literacy. Like when I would ask these kids, do you know how much money you actually make? Not what if they say you make 40 grand a year, 100 grand, what do you actually get deposited in your account? Do they have some sort of retirement 401k plan, and what do they match you for? Do you know what an actual budget is and what your expenses are like we started off, it was so basic. But what's so funny is the questions they ask are like, I would say, if you did your finances and it was a list of things I would want you to learn 1 to 100, they always start at like 80. How do I buy a rental? How do I start a business?
Yeah.
How do I do this? Because they're watching all this stuff on social media. I'm like, dude, you need to figure out how to do a budget. You need to figure out how to make more than 27 grand a year. You live in your mom's spare bedroom. You need to figure out how to make enough money to like go out on your own. And so it was like basic stuff. I think you can teach that basic financial stuff in a high school setting. But again, I don't know where they're going to get the teacher to do it. Honestly, it's going to be something that we're going to start to do. We're literally going to create a whole separate side business because my background is in all this stuff. And for whatever reason, as much as you talk to women, I kind of feel like it was funny. I saw a stat the other day that single women owned like 2.7 million more homes than single men.
Yeah.
And that's awesome. I have a daughter and a son. I think that's fantastic. But in some ways, I'm looking at these young men like, guys, what are we doing? Like, what are we doing? Yeah, I have I had a high-powered ex-wife. I have a high-powered girlfriend now. I love hanging around high-powered women.
Obviously.
But these guys can't, like, they think they want one of those. But like, dude, you got to get your shit together if you really want one of those people.
Do you know what these guys are doing?
What are they doing?
Going to music festivals.
Right. If you're someone out there thinking about buying a home in Northern Nevada, but you're nervous and scared about pricing, affordability, and you're just not sure what's going on in the real estate market right now, hit the link. We have a free guide that gets you all the information you need so that you can feel comfortable about what's going on out there, and you can make an appointment directly with me so we can talk to you about helping you feel good and comfortable about what's going on in the real estate market here in Northern Nevada.
Everybody will say to me, I'm not going to buy a house because I don't want to be house poor. And then the answer we're supposed to give as loan officers is, no. I never want you to hate your mortgage payment, because if you hate your mortgage payment, you're quickly going to hate your house. And I've been thinking about this really hard this year. Like, maybe some of you do need to hate your mortgage payment. Because if you don't spend the money on this and put it into the forced savings account that is your amortization gain on this thing, you're going to blow it going to 5 too many music festivals, eating out. I call it your disappearing money, the money that like just goes poof every month. Like, you pay all your bills. You don't have a designer bag to show for it. Right. You don't have like anything you really wanted. You didn't add some new thing to your F-150 lifted truck. Like, the money's just gone. Right. It just disappears in restaurants and bars and coffee shops over the weekend. I would be okay with taking some of that money and diverting it. I'm not trying to be Dave Ramsey either and telling you that not buying a latte is going to get you into a house. But I am telling you, you're blowing more money than you think every month, and you should be okay with diverting some of that to something that will change the trajectory of your life.
Well, what's sad for most of them, I told them this, is when we sit down, is I go, if you guys just paid attention, and I know nobody wants to do a budget. I go, but if you do a budget, you don't have to do it forever. I go, I don't do a budget anymore.
No, but you got to train your brain.
But you know how your costs are going. I go, and if you did nothing else but buy a house, figure out whether it's a 401k, Roth IRA, I don't care what retirement account it is, and you max those out. And those are the only 2 things you ever did. And then you just lived on what you made. You didn't go into any more debt. If you made 50 and you did all your stuff that time, you had 20 left over, live on the 20. Don't go over that. Don't get credit card debt and other debts and car loans, all other stuff. If you do that, you'll be, what I like to always say to them is, whatever your definition of wealthy is that you choose to do. Some people are willing to work harder than others. I watch your brother. That guy's schedule's out of control. He works so much. I don't want to work that hard. No. But he's making more money than me, and good for him. I'm not mad about it. I don't want to work that hard.
That's not what's going to give you joy.
Exactly. So you figure out what those things are for you. You're trying to help women. I want to help these young guys try to figure out what their finances are. But full circle this all back to them. If I sent one of them to you and you're seeing these people and they're fearful and they're scared and they don't know what to do, like, how are you coaching them up? Like, how are you getting them to say, here's the things you need to do? Because I would love to get them and say, okay, I don't want them to see credit counselors. I want them to go see Shivani and say, okay, Shivani, we need to see if we can get them loan approved. And if you can, great. Maybe it's not for enough that we can buy something good. And if not, what are the things we need to do over the next 6 months, 12 months so that they can buy a house next year? and put that plan in place. Like, how are you coaching up your clients?
As real estate people, the reason you're motivated to talk to those kids, the reason I'm motivated to talk to women and do the Future is Female is because as real estate people, we get the most comprehensive view of finances.
100%.
Like, we get the best education. We're not like a CPA who's just in there once a year to assess your tax liability. We're not like a financial advisor who's really just focused on your long-term wealth. As a mortgage lender, I have to review your credit. I have to review your current assets and how they look to appreciate. I have to review what you spend every month, the ways you spend it, the habits you have in spending it, the income you earn on a gross level and then on a net level. Mm-hmm. I mean, I get in there on that financial
you get all the nuts and bolts of what they're doing.
We have to know everything. And then we get to learn from the people who are doing really well and the people who aren't.
100%.
So then I started thinking, like, if I'm going to pre-approve people to buy a house, why don't I make it a more holistic approach? Like, let's talk about their relationship with money, what it's been like and what it could be like based on all this knowledge that I have now from being up close and personal with the most financially secure people. I'm trying to educate them. So they come in and we sit them down and first we do like a market analysis with them. We want to go over the data we're seeing on historical appreciation in the area they're trying to buy and forecasted appreciation. Right. We want to show them what their potential return on investment could be and how we come to these numbers. Like, let's get into the supply and demand of what makes home values go up. We do this real estate report card analysis with them. Then we do a buy versus rent with them so they can see that it's not really a market anymore where I can tell you that your mortgage payment's going to be less than your rent.
No.
It's not.
Right.
But let me show you how these two paths go over the next 9 years, where you rent versus you buy, and you accumulate appreciation gains and amortization gains, and you stack those pennies. Then we do their pre-approval, where we tell them what they qualify for. And then here's been the most pivotal thing in the last 6 months that we've added to our process with new buyers, is I say, how do you feel about that mortgage payment?
Right.
And they're like, not good. Like, it hurts. So then I go, okay, I qualified you based on your gross, and I qualified you based on the monthly bills that report on your credit. I'm not looking at groceries. Nothing. I'm not looking at childcare. I'm not looking at gas. So then I take out a basic piece of paper and we do what you just talked about, a budget. And I go through with them and then I identify the money that's disappearing every month. And I say, would you either be willing to start setting this aside like it was your mortgage payment, or putting it towards a down payment? And then they're like, okay, light bulb comes on. This becomes real. This becomes attainable.
That's when it's fun for us. I mean, I remember my son's friends, when they saw those numbers, I go, you guys realize how much money you're just pissing away? And when they figured all those things out, or even one of them, he had enough money saved up. He's the one who just bought a house. He moved money into a money market savings account that was earning 5% versus the 0.0001. When he did that, the first time he got his $200-something of interest into his account, he called me. He goes, Brian, that was the easiest 5 minutes I ever spent. I just got $200-something for doing nothing. I go, hello? Yeah. That's what I'm talking about. So it's just getting those basic skills and knowledge. When you see these clients coming in, though, are you saying certain demographics? Is it just young people? I mean, I feel like I get just as many people my age that are just as clueless about their finances, if not even worse, than younger people. So, when you see people coming in, is there any age gaps or just anybody?
Anybody is scared right now. Yeah. Everybody is scared right now. You'll see dual income households where they're making $300,000 a year and they don't qualify to buy. You know why, though? This keeping up with the Joneses that's happening in society right now, no, it's got to be the worst ever. Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I'm not as old as you. I haven't lived as much life. I've only got a short 25 years of observing this. But I've never seen anything like this level. Like, here's what I'm telling you. Last night I'm talking to someone and they're like, I'm going to vote for Trump because the economy's in the shitter. And don't worry, I'm not about to make this political. But I'm like, actually, my problem is that the economy's not in the shitter according to all the reports I get every week that blow out the bond market and reduce the chances of the Fed cutting interest rates. The economy's actually reading really well. The problem is people don't feel that way. And here's what I figured out. Sure, we have tons of jobs. Sure, wages are staying fine. Sure, initial jobless claims aren't as high as we think they would be. But we got stagnant wages is what I'm talking to people. People are not saving money. I see consumer debt is at its highest point ever. Savings rates, zip. Nobody's saving money. So here's what I think they're doing. They're spending money they don't have to keep up appearances. And that's why inflation won't come down.
100%.
Because people have an ego problem.
Well, I tell these kids all the time, I say to them, do you want to be wealthy or do you want to look wealthy? And I go, and we had a big conversation about this just the other night. I said, there's a huge difference between being rich and being wealthy. Because if you're rich, usually it just means you have a high income. And that means you can get good credit so you can afford expensive things and you look rich. But if you want to be wealthy, I go, most people that are wealthy, you wouldn't even know that they're wealthy. I joke with them all the time. I drive a 10-year-old car with 140,000 miles on it. Happens to be a Mercedes, so people think it's a fancy car. I'm like, I've had a car payment on that car in 8 years. And I take all that money.
What do you think about the Mercedes dealership here?
It's the worst ever. That's a whole sidebar. We can talk about that another day. It literally is going to cause me not to buy another one. It's the worst dealership in America.
I hate my car because I hate that dealership.
I'm with you on that. But I mean, that's what I'm talking about though, because we drive those, people think, well, then maybe he's doing something right. Or I remember I wear a Rolex watch. And I remember when I first started wearing it and somebody made some big comment, and you know me, I'm Mr. Jeans and baseball hat guy and all that stuff. And someone made a comment to me about the watch. And I'm usually a pretty nice guy. I don't get rude too often. And I looked at the guy, I said, you want to know where I got the watch? And he goes, where? I go, from my dad who had to die so I could wear it on my wrist. And he got real quiet real quick. I'm like, if you think I spent $10,000 or $15,000 on a watch, anyone who knows me would know that's not something I'm going to do. I'm going to find some investment that would make me the money to then be able to buy the watch. But I'm not just going to go grab money out of my bank account and go buy a watch because it feels good. Like, no, this watch is like almost 50 years old. It was my dad's watch. And if you don't think my son's got his eye on it one day that he thinks he's going to wear it, great. But it's like, that's what happens is people just judge you by what they're seeing and what they're doing. I tell them all the time, most wealthy people, you wouldn't know. You wouldn't know they're wealthy because they're not doing all these fancy, high, expensive things. And if they are, you hope to God that they'd be able to write a check for the fancy car or write a check for that house, or they're doing all the smart things first. And then if you got some extra money and you want to get crazy and buy a $500 handbag, yeah, I'm not saying don't do any of those things, but it's later. You can't do it at the beginning. So
you said fancy $500 handbag?
Well, $5,000 handbag, not 500. What do you think as far as the role now, what the media's got in all this between, like you said, they're talking about rates and the economy. And now, of course, with all the litigation that's supposedly going into the real estate industry, I feel like they really just don't want to have independent contractor status for anyone. And because realtors are the biggest trade union there is, they're coming after us hardcore. And so it just puts more craziness into our industry right now. But what do you think the role of the media is in all this nonsense?
Every single time, who does it benefit? The lobbyists, the guys who are going to make money on this. Right. Same thing with Dodd-Frank.
Yeah.
It didn't make the consumer any more protected from predatory lending, but it made the lobbyists a ton of money as all the mortgage companies and all the big banks had to hire people to interpret it for them. Right. The reality is you can still get ripped off even though we don't have a truth in lending statement anymore. Right. The closing disclosure isn't any more clear. You still have to find a lender you trust to explain it to you. And I find it's the same thing with these lawsuits. The only people who are going to make money?
Lawyers.
Yeah. And the only person who's going to hurt is the first-time home buyer who's trying to afford their house for the first time and now has additional costs to deal with.
Yeah, it's going to be really interesting because I'm not sure how that's all going to play itself out as far as are some of these buyers going to get represented or not. We were talking about this the other day with VA buyers. In a VA situation, usually they have almost no money down. They're getting some sort of cost, to help get them to the closing table. How are they going to get representation if they're not getting, they can't all of a sudden finance that in.
In the markets where this has already been in play, we haven't seen any change.
Right.
Because the sellers are smart. Yep. They want their property marketed and they pay both agents commission.
I think at worst, I think what you're going to see, at least in the short term, is maybe you see a slight pressure down in some commissions, or you're going to get some shady realtors that are trying to double in the deals or figure out ways to do that. But I'm with you. I think it's more in the industry than outside the industry. I don't think the general public has been too upset the way our market has worked for years.
No, but at best, it weeds out a lot of realtors who aren't good, keeps the ones like you who care about their clients, who care about the future of people's financial literacy. Yeah. That's big stuff you're talking about that you care about.
Oh, yeah.
It keeps the guys like you in the business, gets rid of the part-timers or the people who have commission breath, and then the consumer will be better because they have better people looking out for them. That might be a bit idealistic of what's going to come out of all this.
Well, we've both been doing this long enough, and I know you didn't do this back when we got to have all the fun in 07, 8, 9, when it was just like the sky is really falling and it was a real mess back then. This one's a little bit different.
Biggest financial mistake was being in middle school when I should have been buying rental properties.
Gotta love that. So predictions. We're sitting here recording this. We're going to be, by the time people see this video, it's probably going to be into the second quarter of the year. What do you see happening second quarter, third quarter, rest of this year? Especially with an election coming on this year too. It's going to be even stranger than normal.
Oh God, this election. I think interest rates are going to trend down slightly. I think we'll still see, regardless of what interest rates do, whether they go up or down in a week, I think we're going to see mortgage applications tick up every single week.
So when you say go down, what do you think they're going to go down to? I've heard lots of different things. I have my opinions on this.
This year, the end game.
Well, just as this year trickles on.
I would be very, very enthusiastic and stoked if we hit 5.99 this year.
So it's funny because obviously through some of the places I look for things, whether it's Keeping Current Matters or my old coaching company, Buffini & Company, Keeping Current Matters had said that they thought at one point, it might be 5.99, but they thought at some point this year it would go below 6. I kind of feel like if we just somehow got between like 6.25 and 6.5 and just stayed there for a while and kept not jumping back above 7, below 7, then jump to 8 for a little while. If it would just kind of flatten out, people would know that, hey, if I spend the next 90 days looking for a house and rates are 6.25, 6.5,
and I know what
it
to
would stay.
expect.
I think that would be helpful enough. I don't necessarily think we needed to go under 6. I think it would be nice if it did, but I'm hoping if we can get under 6.5, it'd be great.
We can, though, help a lot of people buy homes if rates are in the 5s. We can help a lot of people afford a home. We can have a normal, healthy market, if that even exists anymore.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if there's even a definition of normal anymore, but
Right.
I think the closest thing we could get to it is if rates were in the 5s. Rates go back into the 4s, it's going to get really chaotic.
Yeah.
I don't know that we ever see rates in the 3s again.
I don't think so. I don't really think we're going to see rates.
I don't think we need to.
I don't think so either. I think, like you said, if the rates were high 5s, it'd be great. I think if we could just get them in the low mid 6s, that would be amazing too. And everyone keeps saying that hopefully that's going to happen as the year progresses. But I think because they keep saying that, it's one more reason why buyers are like, I'm going to wait, I'm going to wait, I'm going to wait.
Yeah, so stop waiting,
Yeah.
guys. Like,
and the sad part is the
get in the
prices are
game.
not coming down.
The lower the rates go, I think the acceleration of prices happens, like they're related. We're going to see the reacceleration of pricing as soon as interest rates come down. So you need to start running your numbers now and stop waiting. Stop trying to time the market. It's like trying to catch a falling knife. You're going to bleed.
Yeah.
And that's never, I do a weekly update for realtors and a monthly update for buyers on what's happening with the market.
Right.
And I always preface it with, the point of this is not that you try to time the market.
No.
This is just to keep you apprised of what's happening, because you should keep a pulse on what's happening. You have to buy when the right opportunity comes for you. And the only way you're going to be able to identify the right opportunity is if you've got the right team advising you.
100%. I totally agree with you. It's just, I think that whole game is no different than in the stock market. When people try to play that game of trying to time these things out, it just doesn't work. Just play the long game, put your money in all these things, buy as many assets that appreciate over time, and financially you're going to be fine. And it's really, honestly, that simple. It's figuring out how to make enough money, live on a budget, do your investing off the top, live on the rest, don't go over budget. If you just do those simple things, this is why I joke about all the time. I think people try to make money in finances so complicated, but if even for the short term, people just paid attention for a few months and started really figuring out
Where their
how
money's
this
going.
works. And what they don't understand is how compounding wins. And I talk about this all the time, where it's like, it doesn't feel like winning when it feels like it happens slow and slow and slow and slow. But my best friend talk about this all the time, that whole rule of 72. And they looked at me like, what are you talking about? I'm like, if you can earn 9% and you take 72 divided by 9, it means your money doubles every 8 years. I go, now think about that. I said, when you're 50, let's say you were fortunate enough to have $500,000 in your retirement account. And then when you're 58, it's $1 million. Then when you're 66, it's $2 million. And then when you're 74, it's $4 million. And they're looking at me like, but again, when all of a sudden you're young and it goes from 1,000 to 5,000, it doesn't feel like winning. So it's just one of those things where I just think people have to search this information out. It's kind of like nutrition. It's like people sort of know what to do, but they don't do it. It's not that hard, but it is that hard. So we shall see about that. Anything else you want to talk about before we end this craziness?
No, I just want to say that I have a lot of respect for what you're doing, and putting out this kind of content so that people can find the education they need. It's huge. You gotta find this stuff. You gotta look for people who are taking the time to invest in solely just educating you. So good for you for doing it.
Well, I appreciate it. Hopefully we can do this again sometime in the future. I'm happy to jump over there and even show up at one of your futurist females. Even though I was out of town last time you did it, I of course had my daughter.
Real men come to the future.
I know. I saw in the pictures there were a few fellas there.
was
You know
five.
me, I'd much rather hang out in a room full of women anyway than a room full of guys. Always smells better, prettier faces. It's way better.
Smells better.
If you're someone thinking about buying or selling a home here in Northern Nevada, or someone thinking about moving here, click the video, check it out. We've got lots of great information for you.